Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and welcome to episode 35 of the Mandala of Life, 365 Days to Self-Discovery. Today we're moving away from abstract energy and back to logical energy. We're moving away from the memories and the reflections after we've had an experience to logical direction, where we decide the patterns that are needed to bring stability to our future. So once again, we're moving from the past to the future. The Gate 7 is leadership energy that can support the voice of influence. While the harmonic, the Gate 31, has the influence, the Gate 7 shows the direction to the patterns of the future. Some may say this is considered the power behind the throne, because only when all voices are heard does leadership truly succeed. While abstract energy is all about an experience and just kind of going with the flow, logical energy comes with a lot of experimentation and many trials before it's deemed worthy or the pattern is considered stable. While patterns are important in our lives and give the collective the stability for the future, we also need leadership that will show us the way, that will take into consideration the voices of all the people so that we all have a voice in the patterns that we want to see in the future. The Gate 7 points the way to the future, with the sole purpose of finding the best patterns that will ensure the survival of the collective. And because stability is so vital, there's a tremendous amount of pressure to get it right. But before we get into new content, let's quickly go over what we talked about in our last episode. In our last episode, we talked about the Gate 33 and how it's considered the stop codon, or the end of a process. This is a place where we reflect on the experiences that we had. Reflection is extremely important when it comes to abstract energy, because all that is left after we've had an experience is a memory. And if we don't have the time to reflect and think about where we've been, then we can't truly share our experiences with the collective, which is the whole point of collective energy. The Gate 33 is half of the channel of the prodigal, the 1333. This is where history resides, and also where there's potential for wisdom for the collective. The Gate 33 talks to privacy and moments alone so we can make sense of where we've been. It's a place for meditation and just being with ourselves in quiet moments. And if you want to find out more about the Gate 33, please check out episode 34 of the Mandala of Life. With that said, let's get into new content, the Gate 7. And please don't forget to check out the other episodes of the Mandala of Life. As we go around the mandala, we see that there is connection and there's a flow within the energy. And that when we come to the end of a process with the Gate 33, we begin a new process with the Gate 7. So after we have had reflection on the experiences and where we've been, we can move on to logical energy, which talks about new patterns that we want to make for the future. The truth about patterns, or the way we do things, or how we live in a collective environment, is that the patterns have an expiration date. In other words, they won't be forever. Eventually, we'll see issues and problems with the patterns, and that's when we need to shift and make new patterns. Usually it's after mutation has come in and changed everything. Logical energy wants to keep the patterns in play as long as they can. So it's not something that we want to do, but most times we're forced to do it because something new comes in the path and everything changes. So when we need a new pattern, as always happens, we need somebody to point the way, somebody to show us the potential for the future patterns. It doesn't mean that they have all the answers, but it does mean that they're somehow directing us to show us where we potentially might have more stability in the future. That's the energy of the Gate 7, the first gate of the Quarter of Duality, where purpose is fulfilled through bonding. The interesting thing about the channel of the Alpha, the 731, which the Gate 7 is half of, is that there's a lot of connection between the energies, or a lot of flow. And all channels have that to some degree. But some channels, like the 731, the channel of the Alpha, are so intricately entwined that it's difficult to pull them apart, although we will do that as we go through this energy. The 731, the channel of the Alpha, is truly all about leadership and talking about how we're going to get a better tomorrow. When patterns break or systems break down, we need a leadership that's going to take the collective into the future, that's going to point the way, that's going to say, okay, this is broken, how can we fix it? And that's what happens when we have the channel of the Alpha. This is a leadership that depends on the voices of the people and also the support of the people. In other words, everybody has some level of input in where they want to go in the future. And then the leadership tries to make that happen. The leadership is only as strong as the people that support it. So in other words, without the people supporting you, you can't have a leadership with this type of energy. This is also projected energy, or it's a projected channel, which means it needs to be recognized to be the leader that you are hardwired to be. And when you're given recognition or an acknowledgement, or you're in some way elected to be a leader, then that's when you truly can show the power and influence that you carry naturally. The gate 31 is the voice or the face that people see. And many times we would consider the gate 7 the power behind the voice of influence, which means that the gate 7 doesn't always have a presence so that people can see them, but yet they can be having a lot of power behind the scenes. But the gate 7 in its own right carries a lot of leadership potential as well. As I said, they're both closely intertwined. But there is something extremely special about the gate 7, and that is that it is called a role gate. Role gates speak to specific archetypes and how we act within certain circumstances in relationship to the type of energy that we are in the presence of. So for instance, how we act when we're in a tribal situation, how we act when we're in an individual situation, and also how we act in a collective situation. The gate 7 is a collective leadership energy, and that's what it speaks about. The archetypes are related to the profile lines, the personality profile line. So for instance, if you have the profile 2-4, then you would have the second line of the gate 7 as a role gate. So let's get into exactly what that means and talk about the styles of leadership and how they connect with our personality profile line. Because the gate 7 is a role gate, we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to go through each line of the gate 7 because it's important to have a connection with the archetype and style of leadership that you can bring to the table. The thing to remember is that you don't have to have the gate 7 defined in your chart. That's not essential. But if you do, and the line is different than your personality profile line, then you're going to have a couple of different styles of leadership that can come natural to you. And when we're talking about natural, we're talking about living as ourselves. In other words, we're talking about living through our strategy and our authority, trying to be the best version of who we are and allowing our individuality and our uniqueness to shine. And when that happens, these archetypes, our roles of our energy, naturally show up. So without further ado, let's talk about the gate 7, line 1, the authoritarian. So the gate 7, line 1, the authoritarian, is the style of leadership that's connected with the profiles 1-3 and also 1-4. The first line of any energy is always going to be where we're finding our foundation, where we're trying to get the information that we need or the stability that we need so that we could be a true leader. Here it's about having the authority to be a leader. The authority comes from this ability that you have actually done the work, that you've gathered all the information, and that you've built a foundation. So if you want to be a leader who is somebody who does computer technology or something like that, that would mean that in order for you to take on this role or this leadership role, you need to have a good solid basis about the things that you're going to be leading about. So you would have to have a lot of knowledge about computers. You would have had to done a lot of research or investigation into all the information that you need so that you have a solid foundation to lead from. That's the key with the authoritarian leadership. If you do not have the solid foundation, then you can pretend or you can sort of wing it for the first little while, but eventually people will see that you don't have the energy that is required for the authoritarian leadership because you haven't built that base to sort of lead from. And if you don't have that, then it will crumble. The key here is to always have the basis to be able to lead from. In other words, to have done your investigation, to have built your foundation, to have all you need to be an adequate and efficient leader for the collective. When we get to the gate 7, line 2, the Democrat, this is the style of leadership that's connected to the profiles 2-4 and also 2-5. Whenever we talk about a second line of any particular gate or a profile line, we're always talking about somebody who comes with a natural talent, but also somebody who has this projection of whatever type of energy is connected to that gate. So here it's this projection that you are a good leader, whether that's true or not. What that means is that people will naturally think that you can lead, and that may not necessarily be the case because maybe you haven't gained the experience that you need to want to take on the role. The other perspective is that the second line is always the energy that's going to be called out into the collective to actually be a leader. In other words, you cannot feel like you're a leader and then people will say, oh yes, we think you can do it. Many times you actually can stand to the plate, but you may not naturally look at yourself as somebody who's a natural born leader, although that could very well be a talent that you have. The key here is always about serving the majority. This is not about one side of the leadership. It's all together. And so there's a lot of serving within this energy, and you're serving the people that support you. And when you remember that you're only one part of the whole, then that's where you can have the best and strongest leadership, because you understand the concept that there are many different parts to the leadership and that you're only one part. And as a whole, that's how real change can come into being. When we move to the gate 7, line 3, we're moving to the anarchist. And this style of leadership is connected to the profiles 3-5 and also 3-6. The word anarchist in this energy just means somebody who experiments or has seen a lot of different types of leadership energy and can see what works and what doesn't work. And so when you carry this energy and you see a leadership style that doesn't actually work or is in some way ineffective, then there can be a tendency to revolt or to want to not have that type of leadership anymore because you've seen it and you know that this is not the right style of leadership. It's not going to get the job done. That's what this energy is all about. There's an experimentation and an adaptation to understand where we need to improve, where we need to change things so that we can get a better outcome. That's the whole point of the experimental energy, to get the best that we can get. And without the experimentation, we will never know that. We will always just do the same thing. And that's why this type of energy is extremely important. This is again saying that this leadership doesn't work. We need something new. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have a solution for what is new. You might have an idea, but you're at least pointing out the concept that this is not going to work. You've seen it, you've studied it, and you know that it's not right. It won't work. So that can be a theme within your energy where you can see a leadership style where you're working and it's not something that you can sort of align with, and you might have to change jobs or to not be part of institutions that don't align with the way you think leadership should work. As I said, this energy is extremely important because it's how change happens. The key with this energy is to know that all leadership styles have an expiration date. Some will need a little goading so that they're finishing up their energy, and others will have to play out, because if we don't have a solution to the new leadership, taking one leadership out of play can result in instability. So understanding when to revolt and when to bide your time is the most important part of the energy of the third line. When we get to the gate 7, line 4, we get to the line of the abdicator. And this style of leadership is connected to the profiles 4-1 and also 4-6. Fourth line energy by its nature is a fixed or a singular focus of energy, in that you may like to have a similar approach to all things that you do because you feel that that's the best approach. Now, this is a wonderful leadership when people want that type of leadership. In other words, when you get the support. But eventually, as all patterns change or a mutation comes and the pattern is no longer viable, your style of leadership may no longer align with the people who once supported you. And the key here is to know when the timing is up. So in other words, you will take a leadership role for a couple of years and know that after the couple of years is up, you may stay a little bit longer if you're supported. But if people say that, no, we're changing it, we're going in a new direction, that is when you abdicate or understand that your time for that particular leadership is over, and you can have one in the future, a new opportunity in the future, because it is also the line of the opportunist. So the key here is to know when to let go of the leadership and move on to something new. And when you see that your leadership has come to a close, and instead of holding on and being forced out of your position, you gracefully exit, then that shows the true leadership ability that you have. And you also go out on a high note, and in the future, people will respect you for what you did, and you'll have another opportunity to be a leader once again. When we get to the gate 7, line 5, the general, this is the style of leadership that is connected to the profiles 5-1 and also 5-2. The general, by its nature, is somebody who would lead an army. And it makes a lot of sense when we talk about the gate 7, because that is actually called the gate of the army. A general is somebody who will lead in a time of crisis. And that's exactly what this energy is all about. The 5th line energy is always going to have some level of projection or expectation. And this is about you being a leader. The difference between the 2nd line projection and the 5th line projection is that the 5th line energy, you are more aware of this concept that people think that you are a leader or see you as a leader. The key here is to know when to lead and to know when to let go, because the nature of a general is they come and then they go. They come in times of crisis and then they leave. But if a general stays after the crisis has been averted or everything is settled down again, then that's when they can sort of be blamed for anything else that happens. So because of that, it's best to do what you need to do in a leadership position during a time of crisis and to fade off into the sunset only to come again when another crisis arrives. Now, there is potential sometimes if you've been in the wrong projection field, or what that means is that you've had expectations placed upon you that were actually not true to who you exactly are. And if that has happened and people vilified you because you didn't come through with what they thought, even though you had never planned to in the beginning because that was their expectation, not your actual reality, then you may not want to take on a leadership position. But because the projection of this energy is so strong, it really does talk to this idea that you are a natural born leader and a practical leader as well, and that at some time, stepping into a leadership position is exactly right for you. And that way you will get the reputation of someone who can be in a place of crisis and understand that you can lead through the crisis and then step back when you're no longer needed. And this can encourage a very good reputation for you, which is really what all 5th line energies want to have in their lives. The last energy is the gate 7, line 6. This is called the administrator. This is a style of leadership for the profiles 6-2 and also 6-3. When we get to the 6th line energy of any gate, we are coming to an energy that is starting to look to the next gate or the next energy. This is also an energy that has had a 3rd line stage. So in other words, you've experimented with a lot of different things. And so when you get to the 6th line energy or the 6th line stage, it means that you just want the ultimate experience. Now, what's really kind of nice about the energy of the 6th line is that when we get here, we see that leadership is not just for specific people. We see that leadership is for everybody. And when you have the 6th line energy, it says that you're looking at everybody around you, seeing their strengths and putting them in leadership positions based on their strengths. So you are being an administrator and understanding that everybody has a role to play and everybody has a leadership ability. This is really talking to the idea that we can all do our own thing. We can all be our own type of leaders. We do not need a master or a guru or somebody to lead us at all points. We can lead our own lives and we can be leaders when we need to be. And that is what this energy talks about. So it's less about wanting to be a leader yourself and more about finding the skills and abilities and the strengths of all the people that you are guiding in their leadership roles. And this is a particular type of energy that we are moving towards when we get to 2027 and we have the global cycle that will move from the 5th line to the 6th line. So this really does talk to this idea of being our own selves and being our own type of leaders based on exactly who we are. What the gate 7 says is that we're all unique, and what we bring to the table as a leader is really dependent on exactly who we are. And when we're okay and align with exactly who we are, and we don't try and be like somebody else and allow our natural tendency to shine, then that's when we can be the true leaders that we are meant to be, because all of us have some level of leadership capacity built within us. And when we've discovered our own brand of leadership and allow our uniqueness to shine, the mandala of life turns again, and we begin to look for the answers for the patterns of the future. This is part of the design of mental ease mixed with doubt. This is the gate 4, the gate of formalization. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back again next week with episode 36, the gate 4, the gate of youthful folly. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.